The Supreme Court is the final arbiter of the land. Now, that doesn't mean that there is absolute gloom, though this is a very dark period in the United States, not only for protecting reproductive health and bodily autonomy, but also in terms of our democracy. In the United States, there are states that are free. That is, in California, New York, Illinois, Colorado, states that protect individual liberties as related to reproductive health and privacy. But sadly, there are states that are set to trigger, 26 of them, to ban or nearly ban abortion in those states. And by the Supreme Court ruling, they will be able to lawfully do that. Now, are there other actions that can take place? Sure. The President of the United States can issue executive orders. The United States Congress can enact laws that would codify Roe v. Wade and go even further in the protection of reproductive health, rights, and liberties. And of course, we have to understand this on the backdrop of what this means. This is nearly a death sentence for some women. In the state of Mississippi, 80% of the cardiac deaths during pregnancy in that state are Black women. And if you're a Black woman in Mississippi, you're 118 times more likely to die by carrying a pregnancy to term than by having an abortion. That's how grave this Supreme Court decision is and what this represents in the United States.
Yeah, you've called this decision, and I quote you here, the new Jane Crow. And in your book, Policing the Womb, you outline how the U.S. has historically denied essential health services to Black and brown women. Why this particular group?
Well, the United States has been well practiced in its addiction long ago to slavery, and I use those words quite purposely. Slavery represented the kidnap and the sex and labor trafficking of Black women, and it persisted not for a week or two or a month. It persisted longer than a decade. Those decades rolled into centuries, and even in Europe, when there were bans being placed on slavery, when there were white women abolitionists that said, we will not take that cotton from the United States, we will not take that sugar from the United States, the United States persisted in its taste for slavery. And ultimately in 1865, through the ratification of a 13th Amendment, it was abolished. But the state of Mississippi has never been in favor of the grant of full equal citizenship to Black and brown women in that state.
Michelle, one of the things that I read here, the Supreme Court in their ruling had said that abortion is not a constitutional matter. And I want to point out, too, that past liberal justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, shall we say, in the past had indicated similar sentiment as well. Is the Supreme Court right in deciding that a woman's decision to do what she wants with her body is not a matter for the Supreme Court to rule on?
Well, let's be clear in terms of what Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was talking about, and let's be clear on the history. Roe v. Wade was a 7-2 opinion. 5 of those 7 justices were Republican appointed. So one can't actually trust what you find in this opinion and the leaked draft opinion, because it's one that cherry picks through history. It's one that decides certain modes of history and others not. Take, for example, the United States Constitution very specifically mentions that people are individuals that are born in the United States. It's the first sentence of our 14th Amendment. And yet you have a Supreme Court ruling where over and over again the terminology of unborn is used. There is no mention of unborn in the United States Constitution. And then secondly, if you understand the 13th Amendment well, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, it applied to Black women too. And everybody knew, including the members of Congress who wrote it, that Black women had been subject to involuntary reproductive servitude. It was what bankrolled American slavery and capitalism. And so when the 13th Amendment struck down slavery and involuntary servitude, it also struck down mandated pregnancies that Black women did not want.
Just very quickly, I want to ask you too, there is a perception that if Roe can be overturned, that other legislation too could be in the crosshairs of the Supreme Court. What else could they be considering?
Well, even though in this opinion, Justice Alito suggests that there are protections for contraception and that there's protection for interracial marriage and possibly even same sex marriage, in the same opinion, with the concurrence from Justice Thomas, he makes clear that he's not supportive of LGBTQ equality, marriage equality for gay people. And we see already in states the conflation of certain contraception with abortion, such as IUDs. A very popular form of contraception is being claimed to be an abortifacient. Of course, it does not cause the termination of a pregnancy, but what comes next, very likely in these states, are to ban various forms of abortion. And we'll see what ends up happening in terms of same sex marriage and interracial marriage. I would say that nothing is sacred right now in states that are seeking to restrict civil liberties and civil rights of these kind.